Hi there, it's Carl Irwin, the Common Magician, and what I want to look at today is some card magic. I have found that a lot of you who subscribe to my channel enjoy card magic, and apparently you enjoy accessible card magic because that's the only kind of card magic we do here. I mean, with some exceptions, we do look at a few more difficult techniques, but in general, we look at strategies that are very accessible to someone who doesn't have a lot of time to practice in-depth work. You need to be able to do magic at a moment's notice in an impromptu setting or with little preparation. And we look at those kinds of strategies. Now, the problem is that I'm not much of a card magician. Really, I'm not. I mean, I do card magic, and I cover a lot of card magic on here, but I wouldn't consider myself to be a card magician. It's not something that I would do professionally, that's for sure. I probably could put together a very good set using the strategies that I use, but in terms of respect among practitioners, you wouldn't call me a card magician because of the accessible strategies that I depend on. This creates a problem for me, though, in terms of a YouTube channel like this, is that I've run out of stuff to do. You know, I really have, and this happened a long time ago. I've run somewhat to the end of my my trick bag, so to speak. I mean, I have methods that can be applied to various tricks, and I can always create new tricks based on those methods. But in terms of showing you new strategies, that doesn't happen very much on here. Usually what's happening is I'm taking old strategies that we've already discussed, applying them in some new ways, or bringing about material that I've talked about quite some time ago, maybe with a new light or a new nuanced kind of perspective on it. And because of that, I don't create a lot more content more regularly, particularly on card magic. So what I thought I would do today is I would revisit some ideas and maybe throw a few new ideas at you that may be more nuanced from what we've talked about before. But I want to try something here where we're going to look at impromptu card magic. But these are going to be major effects. These are probably the most famous effects among card magicians. Very coveted effects. Of course, any card at any number is going to be on there, but not just that. There's going to be some other ideas too. Very well-known plots that you can do in impromptu settings using very accessible techniques and still manage to get the impact of those effects. Now, will all of these work with card magicians or magicians in general, people that know various techniques for card magic? Some of them might, depending on the circumstance, but in general, no, they won't, but that's not our concern. What we're looking for is the perspective or the perception of the impossibility and the effect that we as card magicians expect to see from a magician who knows something that we don't know. Okay, they're applying some kind of method that we've never seen before, and in spite of all of the conditions and restrictions that we expect to have, it still looks amazing to us. We want to create that sense for the regular spectator, and honestly, that's not hard to do. And that's what we're going to try to do. So these are the effects we're going to look at. We're going to look at the invisible deck. We're going to look at any card at any number, Burglass effect, if you want to call it that, depending on how you perceive that effect in terms of its demonstration and restrictions. 51 faces north. We're going to look at, or the open prediction. We're going to look at the trick that cannot be explained. We're going to look at triumph. We're going to look at out of this world, and we're going to look at Scarney's aces. These are big plots. I mean, books have been written about some of these plots. Articles have written about some of these plots. There are entire forum threads that go for pages and pages and pages on the internet forums about any one of these particular plots. And here we're going to try to cover them on a video. And we're going to try to cover them in the assumption that you're in an impromptu setting with a regular deck of cards that has not been prepared in any way. It has not been, I'll say, stacked. It's not a stacked deck. It's not It's not a memorized deck. You're not using any extra apparatus. It's just the cards, all of the cards in an impromptu setting when you have a deck of cards, being able to do any one of these tricks at a moment's notice. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a little bit as we get further into this. So let's start with one. Now, again, will some of you be disappointed in how I accomplish some of these? Inevitably. But what I posit is that using the methods that I'm going to talk about today, and these are not the exhaustive methods that I have for these tricks, as you know, what I posit is that if you use the methods that I do discuss here, they will be sufficient enough for your audiences. They will accept the effect as you convey it, as you portray it, as you execute it, and in many cases as they execute it, because some of these tricks require that by the restrictions that we put on it. That this will fly. Every single one of these will fly very well with your audiences. Okay, so let's start with the invisible deck. First, I'm going to do it, then I'm going to explain it, and I'll talk about a few little additional ideas for you to consider. So here's how you can do this. Is one of many ways, and this is I do suggest that every one of these tricks I'm going to show you the most accessible ways that I can muster up to accomplish these effects. In many cases, there'll be really no sleights at all. Okay, invisible deck. You know the trick. I've got a deck of cards here. We'll get to that in a moment. First of all, I want you to consider a few questions. And I want to impress upon you that whatever you choose is what we do. Whatever you choose is what we do. There's no equivocation on your decisions. Whatever you pick is what we go with. Okay, it's what we're going to do. So, first of all, you have black and red. I want you to think back and forth, black, red, black, red, black, red. In your mind, I just want you to think this over and over and over, cycle back and forth. In a moment, I'm going to say stop, but you're thinking black, red, and I don't know what you're thinking about right now, but I do say stop. Now, I have a question for you. From where you're at, if you change your mind one more time and you go to the next one, where do you end up? And let's say you end up at black. And I say, great. Okay, black. Could have been either. Okay, but that's where you're at. Okay, black. Inside a deck of cards like this, imagine you have a deck of cards in a box, and in there you've got number cards and picture cards. What would you like to remove from our little imaginary box of cards? The number cards or the picture cards? What would you like to remove? You say the picture cards. I say, great. We'll take out the picture cards, and you're looking at the picture cards. You've got jacks, queens, and kings. You've got ladies and you have men, right, in there. Would you like to pick out the ladies or the men? And you say the men. I say, great. We'll pick out the men. And you're holding on to these queens now. And you said black, right, before. So black. You've got, what is that? That's spade and club. You have a queen of spades and a queen of clubs. And as I said, whatever you choose is what we use. Okay, whatever you choose is what we use. Would you like the queen of spades or the queen of clubs? And you say the queen of clubs. Okay, free choice, completely free in every way. You narrowed down this one card. Now, in this real deck of cards, imagine that we slide out the queen of clubs, we turn it over, and we slide it back in. I've not touched the deck of cards. It's been sitting here the entire time. You freely selected this. We took it out, we turned it over, and we slid it back in. And I want you to note something. If you look inside the deck, indeed, you will see that the cards are facing down except for one card, and one card only. One card. You have the queen of clubs, the invisible deck. So this is an extremely accessible way to do the invisible deck. And I know what some of you are thinking, because you know what at least most of the mechanism is here. We're going to use equivoque to narrow down the selected card. And why use equivoque? Because it's a great way to keep your hands off that deck of cards and to still get to the end. Now, what we're doing, though, is we're using equivoque in a manner, in actually a couple of different modes. We're using equivoque in a manner by which it is well hidden behind a truthful choice. And that is that they do end up choosing the Queen of Clubs in the end, or they could have chosen the Queen of Spades. And the setup here is very simple. I have in the top quarter of the deck the Queen of Clubs facing up, but then I have in the bottom quarter of the deck, and if they had selected the Queen of Spades, I would pick up the deck, turn it over, and I would spread from the bottom. In the bottom quarter of the deck is another card that's facing the wrong way. And it gives a massive margin here all the way up to the top quarter that I can spread through to demonstrate that all the cards are facing one way. But here, indeed, I've got the Queen of Spades. So it's really just a matter of revealing from one side of the deck or the other. Now, this can be set up, in a quasi-impromptu situation where the cards are in your control and without anybody really noticing. If I just kind of shuffle these back in, without any heat on you in the moment, you certainly can go through the cards. And if you want to cull them, you can cull them. But as I said, this is all sleight free, so you don't even have to do that. It's a simple matter of just spreading as you're looking through the cards. You could be talking to someone, doing anything else. You don't want the heat to be on you. You don't want to say, I'm going to show you something, but wait a second. Obviously, that's not what you want to do. You want to do this ahead. But all you have to do is spread the first queen to the top, spread the rest of the cards on top of that till you get to the next queen, and then you can set that card on the top and then spread the remaining cards on top of that. So now I've got the Queen of Spades and the Queen of Clubs right here. Now from here, I can get a pinky break on these from a spread, and I can shuffle them in. Again, this is just a quick setup without doing anything obviously fishy, taking them out, turning them over, and putting them in. I have a pinky break on these cards, and I can just turn over the remainder of the deck on top of these cards and shuffle on top of it freely. So now I've got the Queen of Spades and Queen of Clubs on the bottom of the deck, facing this way. Now it does matter that I know which one is where. Okay, so I know that the spades is the one all the way on the bottom. Queen is the clubs is above that one. I'm going to shuffle off about a quarter. Then I'm going to reach up and I'm going to milk the Queen of Spades +1 face down card on top of that. So now I've placed the Queen of Spades in the bottom quarter. I'm going to shuffle freely until I get to 1 quarter remaining, and then I'm just going to drop this on top, and now I've positioned them. Now that's a setup, and like I said, you could do this ahead of time. It really doesn't matter which card is where as long as you know which one you are placing where. So you need to know that as you cull it, which one's in what position when you do your reversal. Now, I will say this, you could do this in front of the spectator. You could have them shuffle the cards freely. And this is even better, because if they shuffle the cards, you do have to do some things in the open here. They shuffle the cards and say, I want to try something with you, but it's really important that all of the cards are in the deck. So if you just give me a minute, just let me make sure everyone is in here. And you'll see why in a moment. I'm going to show you why this does matter. And as you do this, again, you could call the cards, but you don't have to. If the pretext is that you're counting the cards, you can still just spread at the one card, dump on top, and continue to dump a few cards at a time on top until you get to the card that you want, which is the Queen of Spades here. Put that one on the other side, spread, and act like you're counting. You can just kind of whisper to yourself, whatever, until you get to the end. Now you're set up in a situation where you do have the queens at the one side. You can get your break. You can then do your shuffling right there. And you can say, yep, we're good to go. We have everything that we need. What I'm going to want you to do is I'm going to want you to, and then you can place the card. You can milk it in. Okay, so you can do something like that. That's a good way to set up. But honestly, as a one-off effect, it's a pretty simple matter of just taking out a couple cards, putting them in place. You set the deck down, and major time delay from the time you set it up to when you do it, when you go. I've had a time when I would take even a stacked deck I have a stack where the queens are kind of separated, one on one side, one on the other, and the same color. And what I would do is just turn those cards over and always have them like that in the stack. And knowing that I have the queens or some other same value cards of the same color located in that way, I can do my force. Now, this is using the queen force. Queens are much easier to force than any other card because of the properties of division between different categories of cards. Obviously, between number cards and picture cards, there's far fewer picture cards. So if I give them a choice to remove, there's that weasel word because we don't know what it means, remove the number cards or picture cards from an imaginary deck of cards. If they say number cards, I can remove them and discard. And that leaves me with only 12 cards remaining. And that's a major reduction, right? From there, we have another reduction down to 2/3. That's even more than 2/3 because that's less than a quarter of the deck between all the picture cards. But I can narrow it down even further to just the queens by dividing by ladies and men. And I use another term. As if I'm holding the cards, I say, what would you like to pick out, the ladies or the men? If they say the ladies, I say, well, pick out the ladies. And then you go with those. If they say the men, as in the example, you say, okay, we'll pick out the men. Now you're holding the ladies. You're holding these queens. Now, again, they have a free choice, but we have to get black and red. Now, the black and red force is a very simple 50-50 selection, but it isn't. It's dead certain every time. And you're probably aware of this one. YouTuber on here who does magic tutorials, Reed Fieri, I think is his name, loves this equivocation. And it is a very good one. I don't use it very much, but it is good for a two-way divide, particularly with black and red. You say, name black, red, over and over again in your mind. Black, red, black, red. You're alternating. In your mind, don't say it out loud. As you're thinking this, I'm going to tell you to stop. Now, my question for you is, if you switch one more time, what color do you end on? And what you're doing is you're actually pumping for information when you do this, because you're pumping either for information of where they were, or you're pumping for the information of where they are going. And by getting the information of where they are going, you know where they were, and then you can apply the equivocation. You can equivocate that they made a selection. If they said they arrived on red, you can say, so you were thinking of black. Black is where you stopped at, right? And you just use that as a verification. If they say they switched to black, you say, good, black, and you go with that. And again, it's their choice because they're the ones that were doing the thinking at the moment that you said stop. So that is how you force black. One way or the other, you're going to take either what they were thinking when you said stop, in spite of what they changed to the red, which indicates that you stopped at black. Or you're going to take what they changed to, given that they stopped at red. Or you could do this for red if you want to. It doesn't really matter. That being said, there's oftentimes in a deck of cards, as you're looking through it, where you will find pairs of cards that are of the same color in close proximity. That can be very beneficial in terms of culling a couple of cards. Now, you have to change your force a little bit, and you'd have to get away from the queen. But in terms of equivocation's pretty accessible. You just have to break down whatever it is you're doing into two groups that can be chosen from. And make sure that whenever you have your two groups defined, you have the spectator moving that group figuratively, taking out, removing from a box, picking out, setting down, putting back. These kinds of words that allow you to weasel however way you want to make the outcome work. That you're either going with what they have moved to here or what they have kept over here, whatever the case may be. Okay, so invisible deck, using equivocate on queens, like colored queens, already turned over, one on one side, one on the other. And it's just so good because you can say this. Whatever you choose, I want to be very clear. There will be no equivocation, and people know equivocation, what that means, even though they may not know the magician's equivoque. or equivoke. You say, no equivocation. Whatever you choose is what we will do. That in itself is an equivocation. Okay, that's an equivocation statement because it's ambiguous. That we will do whatever you choose, or whatever you choose is what we will do, does not necessarily explain all that we will do. Okay, so you can say things like that and really kind of take out any sort of suspicion just by that premise. And the very last choice that they make when they pick the queen of clubs or the queen of spades or the hearts or the diamonds, either one, when they make that choice, it is a completely transparent choice. And the fact that that deck sits there never touched in the open and you can just pick it up and spread one way or the other, very disarming. So invisible deck, very accessible manner by which you can accomplish this using a shuffle deck in use with a little bit of covert setup, but open setup. No sleights necessary in order to do that. Just perhaps a little bit of time. And actually, I recommend that you do it with some time ahead rather than trying to set it up in the open. I like to say this. I've had moments where, have you ever done a trick for someone who's somewhat disinterested? They're not fully focused on what you're doing. You can either get frustrated by that, or you can take complete advantage of that spectator. If they're not fully invested in what's going on, do all kinds of dirty work. Feel free to just move things around. I promise you they'll pay closer attention the next time. They will recall that they were paying attention. They will assume that in spite of the fact that maybe their focus wasn't entirely where it needed to be, that it could have been. They will assume that that is the case, and you can take good, full advantage of that whenever they're not paying attention. So with that in mind, feel free to just set things up ahead, just a little bit ahead, a little bit of time delay. Do it very much in the open. You don't even have to do a procedure in order to do that. You can just look through the cards. Just put it where you want it to be, and without going through any kind of interesting shuffling procedure, just wait for a moment. Wait for a moment when you can just put one card in, right? Wait for another moment when you can put another card in. No one's really paying attention at that moment anyway, just so you know which one is where. So the setup can be extremely in the open ahead of time. Next one we want to look at is any card, any number. Now, I like to say that this is the Burglass effect because I pose it as the Burglass effect. Now, the Burglass effect, as we know on this channel, is one where the performer never touches the deck. A card is freely named, a number is freely named, and the card is found at that number, and it is dealt out by the spectator. Performer never touches the deck. At the end of this, and this is one that I've shown you many times, it's just the way I like to perform this, and there's a lot of debate about whether this is good, but I promise you this works really well, especially in terms of recalibration and recap. This gets you all of that. I swear to you, this gets you all of those parameters. It just will not get them all in the way that a magician would want them to be had. But that's not our desire. It will get them all of the parameters the way they are for the Burglass effect, the way that the spectator understands it. And I'm not saying spectators are stupid. It's just that they don't know. They're just ignorant, fundamentally ignorant. They're situationally and circumstantially ignorant, not stupid. There's a difference, okay? And we should take advantage of that. Here's my portrayal, and this is completely clean from the beginning. You don't have to do anything ahead of time. I like to say, go ahead and name any card. And it's important that you name any card that you want. Do you have one in mind? They name something like the Seven of Spades. And they say, that's really important for this trick. This is something that has to be verified for this trick to work. Now, what I'm doing is I'm adding rules to the Burglass effect that aren't necessarily there. But there is a logic to them being there, okay? I say now it's important that we know that there is a Seven of Spades and that there's only one. You can see I have one Seven of Spades. There's no other Seven of Spades in the deck. Now, what's important here with this is not necessarily that I don't know where it is. It's okay if I know where the card is. It just matters that you don't know where the card is and you select somebody else. It doesn't matter if I know. It just matters that you don't know. And more importantly, it matters that I don't touch the cards. That I'm not the one doing what we're about to do. What I'd like to have you, if I could, have you cut approximately half the deck, anywhere in the middle. Go ahead and cut it right there. And they cut the cards. And you say, great. Now listen, I just want to recap what has happened here. You've freely named a card. We know that there's only one, what was it, 7 of spades? We know that there's only one 7 of spades in this deck. We know that. That's verified. We also know that the cards are shuffled, and you don't know where the 7 of spades is at. And that's important because you were the one that selected this number of cards. You cut out a number of cards right here, yes? And it was a free choice. You could have picked any number. Any card, you could have had any number of cards. Could I have you do something real quick? Go ahead and count these cards out for me real quick. And they can count them, say face up. Count them face up right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. 27 cards. You counted 27. You chose 27. It could have been any number, but that's what you picked. I didn't make you do it. You did it on your own. And you picked the 7 of spades. Go ahead and take a look right there where you counted to. 7 of spades. Now, this has all the hallmarks of the Burglass effect. Again, it is just not portrayed in the way that a magician thinks it ought to be. But in terms of the spectator perception of what's going on, a card was freely named. Not only that, we added the benefit that it was the only one in the deck. There's no other 7 of spades, and it was freely thought of. A free number was chosen. The cards were shuffled, and they could not have known where it was. Okay? And the performer did not touch the deck. All of these things are factually true in this presentation. Is it something I would record and put out there for magicians to analyze? No, but boy, is it a great story because it's all of the parameters of the story. So that is my rendition of the Burglass effect, or any card at any number, using a crisscross force. Very, very simple. There's one slight in this, but you don't necessarily have to use it if you don't want to. And I've discussed this using a spread call where they name a card in the middle and you call it to the top. That's unnecessary. They name the 2 of hearts. You say, okay, there's the 2 of hearts, and there's only one 2 of hearts in the entire deck. You just merely scoop it up on top, and then when I shuffle this, I just do a jog shuffle. I shuffle, I leave about a quarter of it left, jog 1 card in, shuffle the rest on top, pick up at the jog, put a break in there, shuffle to the jog, and then drop the packet on top. But you don't even need to do that. You could just put it on, shuffle it in, and I've just shuffled it to the bottom, shuffle it back to the top, or leave it at the bottom, because you could have it cut to the bottom. That's another way to do this. And then if you want to just do a false cut, you could do a tap cut. That's where you swing cut the top off, tap the bottom on, set the bottom down, put the top back on the top. Or what I prefer to do is not do that tap at all. I just swing cut, drop the bottom to the bottom, and put the top on top again. So you don't draw attention to it, but you can do the shuffle, and then doing the cut really is disarming in terms of the shuffle. And now you just explain it doesn't matter if I know where the card is. It only matters that you don't know where the card is, and that's when you select your other spectator, or you can select the same spectator, and you're going to have them ultimately cut anyway. And as far as I know, they're cutting into the middle. So that's the effect. It really doesn't matter what your shuffle is or how you control it. The control can be really lame brain in terms of method. Because they are the ones that are going to be cutting into the deck, and as far as they know, they're cutting into the middle. I do like to give some guidance on the crisscross, as I've mentioned before on the channel and in some of my writings on this. I like to say, can you cut about half the deck, somewhere in the middle, anywhere in the middle, and place the top right here? And that just makes it so that they cut an even amount. And then in the recap, when I say now you could have cut any number of cards, there's a lot of debate about whether or not when you place the offset bottom back on the top, if you say anything about it or if you just do it. I go back and forth on this. I think there's nothing wrong with saying it will complete the cut holding the break that you created. If you're going to say anything, I would recommend that you say that. And I'll complete the cut holding the break that you created. It impresses upon them that it's something they did, and it also justifies the motion. Completing the cut, yes. Holding the break that they created, no. That is not what this is. The break that they created is here. But it is some good flammery with words to get them to focus on this space when you come back to it. Otherwise, you just do it without making any mention of it. Then you do the recap. You explain. You thought of any card? You could have thought of any card. And we verified there's only one in the deck. The deck was shuffled such that you did not know where it was. There's no way you could have known. I'm not the one doing this. You're the one doing it. You selected any number of cards. And this is where I'm conflating the idea of cutting with selecting a number of cards. Now, some people say in criticism to my performance here, well, why not just have them cut and say they cut to the card? Fine, you can do that. But I would like to have the story that they selected any number. If I want to make some kind of reputation about this and they're talking to other people, they say, he does this thing. The Burglass effect, he called it, right? And I can talk about David Burglass and how he would do this where someone would think of any card and someone would select any number. I'll say select rather than thinks because I'm conflating here. But I can say that and they can go look up David Burglass online, look up on, Wikipedia or something and find the story and say, I saw him do that trick, right? It's just about association. But nonetheless, you could just have them cut to it. Same trick. It's the same trick. Why have them pick up the packet and count? Why not? It's involvement. It's suspension, right? That's a good way. In fact, you could have them do that, and then you could slide off this card and have them turn those cards over and really increase the suspense and then show the selection at the end. So we have Invisible Deck, Burglass Effect, any card at any number. And by the rules, I think you can call it that to a regular spectator. I think that works fine. 51 Faces North. This is one I came up with not too long ago. About a year ago, I got to thinking about this. 51 Faces North is a James, it was a Marlowe idea, but I think it was James that came up with the 51 Faces North plot. But the Marlowe idea was that you had a deck that is shuffled. The performer names a card, and then the spectator will deal cards face up until they desire, and then they'll stop, and then you say, there, go ahead and place that card face down. Then they have them deal all the other cards face up, and then you show that the card that you named from the deck that was shuffled is the card that they named. So that is the plot. Now, I got to thinking about this, and there's one force that's out there, the cut deeper force is a force that I never liked. It just has no motivation. There's no motivation in it whatsoever. There's no reason to do the procedure related to the cut deeper force. And because of that, I've always, whenever I need to do a force like that, where I'm forcing the top card, I would do the Lynn Searles force, which is like half of the cut deeper, but at least it has some motivation or a quasi-motivation. If I'm going to force the 3 of spades, I would say, tell me when to stop. They say stop. I say, okay, we'll flip to mark the spot where you cut. And you see here, right where the cards are faced the other way, we have your break. And it ends up being the card that was on top. It's a force for the top. It's just the first flip, but it's somewhat motivated because I'm just saying I'm going to denote where you stopped by turning the cards over. And then you turn the whole pack over. And of course, what you've done is you've just put the top card facing up underneath the bottom section. Okay, so the cut deeper force has another step in it. That's where you say, go ahead and cut a small packet, pick it up, turn it over, and then say someone else, or you could ask the same person, why don't you cut more cards, cut a little deeper this time, and turn that over. Now I've done the same thing, but I've buried the top packet underneath a middle portion, such that the top card is now right here underneath it. In this case was the King of Spades was the top card. No motivation to do that. There's no reason to do that ever, except with this plot. This plot hinges on the idea of having the spectator turn cards over and leave one card remaining face down. Well, by doing the cut deeper force, by picking up a packet and turning it over, you're having the spectator accomplish half of what they need to do. It's the upper half of cards that they're turning over. And they're also marking a spot in the deck, presumably, where a selection would be made to be kept down. So I got to thinking about this, and it seems like the 51 Faces North plot is a perfect justification for the cut deeper force. So without even showing it to you first, I've given you the explanation, but here is a little bit of extra secret sauce on there. There's one move you have to have in order to have them shuffle the cards and have them do all the work and still know what they're going to pick. You have them shuffle the cards. You say, great, you take the cards back. Now, what I do at this point is I say, now what I'm going to do is have you make some choices, and I've done a bubble peek. I know that the top card is the 3 of diamonds, okay? And the bubble peek is just a gambler's peek where you take the cards, put it into the hand in the dealing grip, put my thumb on the top, and I push forward on the card to make a bubble, to make a gap like that. And if I turn it up like this with my finger blocking this view, I actually have a perfect view of the index of the card right there. I can see it, 3 of diamonds. I can see the indice at the top. So as I gesture like this, I see the top card. They shuffled. I take the cards. I set them down without having done anything. The cards are in the shuffled state. I handled them briefly for one moment, completely forgettable moment. And I can make a deal out of this. I say, you shuffled the cards. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not even going to touch the cards, even though I just did. I can say that I will not, and the cards are shuffled, and all of that is true. Now I'm set for the cut deeper force and 51 Faces North. I say, I think that you're going to find the 3 of diamonds specifically. I don't know why I think that, but I think you're going to find that. Do me a favor, could you please pick up a small packet of cards, just cut a small packet of cards, reach down and cut it directly off the top. Great, could you please carefully, don't drop them, turn them over, and then set them back down on top of the deck. Okay, then you get someone else, or you can have the same one say, and just to really muddle this up, and make sure that it's a random selection, could you cut more cards, maybe about half, pick up more cards, turn the whole packet over, and set it down. So we have a very random selection, and if you look there, go ahead and pick up the deck. What I want you to do is deal off all of the cards that are face up onto the table, and they do that. And they deal, and they look, and you've already said 3 of diamonds, or whatever it was, that it's going to be the force. And you say, great, stomp right there. You can see there's one card facing down. Could you please take that one card and deal it face down right here? And they do that, or have them slide it off or whatever. Say, great, now turn over all of the remaining cards. This is just like what they did before. They've turned over cards on top of a selected card and turned over the cards underneath the selected card. And they made the selection. It is beautifully motivated. It's just, in my mind, it's just a perfect application for this really awkward force that a lot of us just don't ever want to use. And I can say this is the only place I ever use that force is for this trick. And it is just a no-brainer kind of application for it. You could have them to increase the tension as you would with the other presentation. Say, go ahead and deal the remaining cards face up right there. Go ahead and take a look at every single one of them. In fact, if you want, just lay them down and spread them out, whatever you want to do for time, okay? And say, now I said you shuffled the deck, you handled the deck, you made this selection, and at the beginning, before this trick even started, and remember, I did not touch the cards, I told you you would pick the 3 of what? The diamonds. And there it is. 51 Faces North. So we've got Invisible Deck, Burglass Effect, any card, any number, and we've got 51 Faces North. And that brings me to the trick that cannot be explained. Okay, now the trick that cannot be explained is a trick that is a Di Vernon trick, where he would have an envelope or a card, an extra card, a stranger card, and he would lay it down on the table. He would have the spectator shuffle the deck. They would shuffle all the cards, and he would have them cut into the deck, and whatever. The spectator cuts to a place. Again, this is why the reason why it's a trick that cannot be explained is because some of that description really can't be the same every time, which gets you to the method of the real trick. But anyway, at the end of it, they cut to a card. The card is shown, and either the envelope is open and a prediction is there, or another card is there, or a stranger card is turned over and it's the same card. Okay, that is the trick that cannot be explained. Here is a rendition of the trick that cannot be explained that is completely impromptu and does essentially all of that. Does all of that. It does even better than that, because what we're going to do is we're going to put the prediction on the spectator. Okay, so first of all, have them shuffle the cards. They shuffle the cards. Take the cards back. You will then take the cards and spread them out. And you ask them, say, name any card that comes to mind. And let's say they name the 7 of spades. Okay, so you go through and you say 7 of spades. Okay, 7 of spades, right? And say, I want you to name any other card but a different color and a different value. Different color, different value. And this, let's say they name something like the 2 of diamonds, right? And you say, great, the 2 of diamonds. You say, this is a prediction. We'll come back to that, okay? And I just want to reiterate, you shuffled the cards. You made this prediction, okay? And everything that's going to happen here is going to be you. I'm not going to touch the cards. It's very important for this trick that everything be free. Not just the prediction, but what you do next. I want you to do one simple thing. Go ahead and cut the deck. Cut the deck approximately halfway. Good. I'm going to complete the cut and hold the break that you created. Now, I want to reiterate that you made some free selections here. You made a prediction. You actually predicted something, and we have it out here in the open so that we can't change. I can't change it on you. I can't modify the prediction to match what you've done. We're locked in. We were locked in before you did anything. And just to remember, you shuffled the cards and you made a selection. You have here a 7 of spades, a 2 of diamonds. You have a value, the 7, and then you have a suit, the diamonds, the 7 of diamonds. Now, I didn't have you take out the 7 of diamonds because that's what we're after. We have you making a prediction here so that we can have this aside and verify that indeed, if you take a look at what you cut to. 7 of diamonds. The trick that cannot be explained, okay? Now, this is stupid easy. This is stupid easy because just like any card, any number, it of course operates on the crisscross force, and it's the identical crisscross force. You could actually do this force a couple times identically the same way, and there's no discrepancy between the two. I wouldn't do it one after the other, but perhaps within a set or in front of someone who saw one of the other tricks, this would still fly. Doing this trick. The problem with these tricks, though, the trick that cannot be explained in the Burglass effect, is they're pretty much the same kind of trick. So doing one and then the other, it's not like you're really going better. You're staying at a very high caliber. You're kind of really high bar, freely thought selections, freely chosen outcomes, right? You're at the very top twice. So you probably wouldn't do both of these in the same setting, but you could. It wouldn't be noticed in terms of the method. Okay. What you do is you have them shuffle the cards for real. You take them back, you spread them out. And then this is a condition that I like to use for freely named cards. Rather than have them freely name a card and lose it back inside the deck, which is what we did for ACAN, the Burglass effect. What we're going to do is we're going to have them make a prediction. But I need to have them open because I have to pick out the cards for their prediction. I'm justified in what I'm doing. I don't have to overly explain this. The cards are shuffled. They shuffled them. It's not really an issue. They name a card truly freely. They say the 3 of clubs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go for the red threes. I see the 3 of the 3 of diamonds here. I'm going to put a break on it as if I'm searching. I see the 3 of hearts just a couple cards below it. I'm going to put a break there above the 3 of hearts. I'm going to go on and then I'm going to find the 3 of clubs. If I see the 3 of clubs and I'm looking for the red threes, I'll go past it and then come back after I've made my breaks. Okay, but I do see the 3 of clubs over here. I take it out. The deck is in this situation. Nobody has a clue what I'm going to be doing. They just know that they named a card and I'm taking it out. Then I say, I want you to name another card, any other card, as long as it's a different color and a different value from this. Different color, different value, totally different. Let's say they say the 8 of spades. I'm sorry, the 8 of hearts. The 8 of hearts. So we go through and right now I'm actually looking for the 8 of hearts, but I'm also spotting the 3 of hearts. I already notated it by putting a break, so I know my 3 of hearts is there, and that's going to be important in a minute. But I go through, I find the 8 of hearts, I set the 8 of hearts down on top of the 3 of clubs, and then what I do next is the only open move. I pick up the top of the spread, I push forward until I get to the break above the 3 of hearts, and I pinch down. I push the rest of the cards forward, and when I get to the end, I gather up this chunk, and I take the chunk below it, and I put them on top. And I've openly cut the 3 of hearts now to the top of the deck. I pick this up, I set it down, and then I recap. They have made a prediction. We'll get to that in a moment. You shuffled the cards, and this is very important that you do all of the work. I'm not going to touch the cards. This is all true. They shuffled the cards. Nothing has been done. I haven't reshuffled them. I haven't done anything. I did cut it in picking it up, but not in a way that mattered. It's certainly, even if they did notice that I cut the cards, it wouldn't matter, okay, because of what's coming next. I say, go ahead and cut into the deck that you shuffled about halfway and set it right here. They cut it, and then I use the line in this case just to show you. I say, I'm going to complete the cut and hold the break that you created, or just do it. Either way, it doesn't matter. Then do the recap and do the explanation. I want to reiterate, you shuffled the cards. You made a free selection here. You actually made a prediction openly, and it's been sitting here the whole time. You pick the 3 of clubs. There's a value here, 3, and then you pick the 8 of hearts. There's a suit here, the hearts. If you put these together, you get the value in the suit, the 3 of hearts. Now, I did this because I want the 3 of hearts to be in here, right? Because you have unwittingly also found the 3 of hearts, and then you show it. The trick that cannot be explained. So we've covered the invisible deck, any card to any number, Burglass effect, 51 faces north, the trick that cannot be explained, and now we're going to move on to triumph. Triumph, okay? So I have a way of doing triumph that I find makes triumph easier. This is going to be the slop shuffle triumph. You already know this trick. I've talked about it on a very old video, one of the very first videos I put out in the first year or two that I had this channel. I discussed comprehensive triumph, many different ways to accomplish it. And I point out the fact that most triumph routines have that moment where you turn one side of the deck that's partitioned from the other back over again, thereby creating the reverse. And that was much of the point of that video, is to say how many ways can you get into that scenario, and a couple of ways where you don't even need that scenario. We're going to use that scenario using the slop shuffle, but I have a way of doing it that I covered on that video that I still prefer. It works like this, and it's a setup for other effects later on. Okay, this is a setup for other effects later on. Here's how this works. First of all, I'm going to find the aces. I say, I want to try something here. I'm going to see how quickly I can find the 4 aces. How quickly can I find the 4 aces? I'm going to go through, see how fast. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Not bad. I found them. Okay. I want to do better than that. I want to do better than that, but I want to make it harder. I want to make it harder on myself. How could I make it harder on myself? I don't know. Let's see here. If I take the aces and I'm going to put them facing the wrong way, and you're thinking to yourself right now, Carl, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make it harder. There's no way that that makes it harder. How does that make it harder? Right? Because if the aces are facing the other way, I could find them easily. But here's the thing. What if all of the cards are facing in undefined ways, right? If I take some of the cards and I turn them up and some of the cards and turn them down, and I do this all the way through the deck, right? Here's my situation. You would say that this would make it considerably harder. I would hope you would say this would make it considerably harder to find the aces. And hopefully it will be harder to find the aces by doing this. So you can see the situation we have here. I've got some cards facing up. I've got some cards facing down. Some cards are face to face. Some cards are back to front, right? That's the situation we have. Now watch this. What's going to happen here is just in one snap of the fingers, the hokiest thing a magician can do, but I just did it. Something has happened. All of the cards are now facing the same way, except for 4 cards. And in just the snap of my fingers, I found all 4 aces. Okay, so that is the way I prefer to do Triumph, is in a presentation like that. I'm going to come back to this in a moment. You probably already know how to do the slop shuffle Triumph. I'm not really teaching anything new. I will go over it for those of you that don't know. But before I do that, I want to go to the next effect, because the next effect goes perfectly hand in hand with this one, Out of This World. As I said at the top of this, I wanted to show you impromptu ways with a regular shuffle deck in use to do any one of these tricks. Out of This World is a great trick. However, it requires setup. This eliminates the need for setup. Okay, and I can show you how that goes here in a second. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to deal out cards. I've got my black card over here and a red card over here. I'm going to deal the cards onto each one of these piles without looking. I'm going to see if I can get this more organization out of this deck. So I'm just going to kind of randomly, in fact, I'll have you, black or red? What do you want? Red? Red or black? Red? Black or red? Black? Black? Next 3, pick one, black or red? Red? Red or black? Red. Black? I'll tell you what, I'm just going to do this randomly again. How about this one, black or red? Black? Black or red? Red? Black or red? Black? I want to look. Ooh, good job, black. Keep going. Okay, let's see if I've done it. I think, I mean, they appear to be even. I should have gotten it here, but just to be certain. Yeah, watch this. Black, all black, all black. In fact, if you look over here, you can see not only are they all black, but this packet over here is all red, perfectly divided. Okay, so this is a Triumph application. I believe that's a Paul Harris revelation there, which I'll get to that in a moment. Now, the reason why this works well is that the Triumph slop shuffle is used as a means to set up Out of This World. So it's good to go from one to the next. And this is one case where the trick does get more impossible. So I often will do both of these tricks together. Now, let me go back to the Triumph issue with the aces. There's some pretext to this that allows me, or rather pretense to this, that allows me to accomplish a few things. First of all is finding the aces. I find it easier to do and better and more deceptive to do a slot shuffle with multiple cards rather than do it with one card. When you have one card, the slot shuffle can look a little bit, I mean, a slot shuffle in and of itself looks good, but when you have multiple cards of interest intermingled, it looks really good. It looks really nice. So, and I actually in my performance, I did get things reversed a little bit, so I'm going to correct that right now. That goes with not having practiced these things much before having to do it. But I will say this: these techniques are so good and so accessible. You really can think on your feet. Even if you get something slightly wrong, you can always adjust. What I do is I truly go through and I'm going to find the aces. So on this pretense, I say I'm going to find all the aces, see how fast I can do it. And I'm not organizing anything at all at this time. I literally am only doing what I'm saying. I'm finding the aces. And there's the last one. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the complexity of this. And I say, what if I place the cards in here facing the wrong way? And you might be saying, Carl, that's ridiculous. That's not going to make it harder to find. It's going to make it easier. And I say, but what if I do this such that all the cards are facing indiscriminate ways? And now what I do is when I do my slot shuffle, I'm going to take off the first color, red, turn it over against the black, take off a chunk of black, turn it back over, pick up red, pick up black, pick up red plus the card as far as I need to go, pick up black, pick up red plus a card, pick up black, pick up red, pick up black, pick up red, turn it over, pick up plus the card and the black, pick up red, pick up black, pick up red, pick up black, pick up red plus the card in sandwiched, pick up black, pick up red. I'm dividing the black against the red, one side for the other. So actually I have all the cards on this side facing that way, all the cards on this side facing that way, but with the aces mixed in. And now when I show the cards, you will see that you'll see a bunch of cards faces, indexes facing up, plus the aces, plus some cards facing down from both sides. And this looks really, really disarming because there's multiple cards in there. But I've also divided them black and red. I've divided them black and red. There's red on one side, black on the other. What I'm going to do is at a lateral plane or perpendicular plane so they can't see it, is I can divide very narrowly until I see that part in the middle where there's a division. And I see the face down card against the face down card, and I cut right here. I divide and I say you can see that we have some cards facing up, some cards facing down. It's a mess, and I put them together, and what I've done is I've just righted all of the cards except for the aces are now facing the other way. I take the cards, I square them up perpendicular, and then I set it down with the deck facing down. This is important, though, that I do my revelation with the cards facing down, because now if you look, if I have them facing up, they are divided black and red. I don't want them to see that. I'm ahead. I'm ahead by an entire effect. So I do it this way, and then I take out my aces. Now, naturally, this follows that I have some black and red cards here. I want to keep these in order. I've got black cards and I've got red cards that I can set as markers for piles, black and red. I pick up the deck. I just take a quick note of what's on the bottom, red. So I know that these are all black. So as I start putting down, all of the cards I put down at the top are going to be black. Now, at no time am I going to divide. I'm not going to choose where to go by looking or having a key card facing up, which is the normal presentation. This is entirely natural. It's just that at one point, all of the cards on both of these packets are going to be the opposite color, which is going to be red. Okay? I square up this pack, and I can pick it up just to get a reference. I see that there's black on this side, red on the top, which means I'm going to want to count these first. I pick this up, there's black on the bottom, red on the top, which means I'm going to turn these over last. I pick up this packet that has red on the top, I take a look as if to see if I got it right, and what I'm actually looking for is the last three red cards, 8, 9, 8, and I keep that in my mind. And I say, oh, you're going to be surprised by this, and I start showing. I show all the cards as being red, and when I see 8, 9, 8, I know I've gotten to the end of the red cards and these are black. Now I'm going to scoop with this packet, which is all black, up the other packet, and it's going to go against the other black cards with the red cards sitting on top. And this is the Paul Harris variation. I set this down on top of the other stack, and then I spread it away to show that there's all red here and all black here. In one fluid motion, you do this. It's a great revelation that has a bit of a discrepant move, and it works extremely well to get rid of, I think, some of the awkward elements, the unnecessary or unjustifiable elements that are in the normal presentation of Out of This World. So we've got Invisible Deck, any card at any number, Burglass Effect, 51 Faces North, The Trick That Cannot Be Explained, Triumph, Out of This World, and now we're going to go to Scarney's Aces. This is stupid easy. I have the aces out already, and just as a means of having them out, I could do the same kind of pretense. I say I'm going to find the aces, and then say I'm going to do it harder. It's easy to do Scarney's Aces if you find the aces first, and then put them back. If I was doing this in a prepared way, I'd put breather crimps on every one of these aces and just have them shuffle the deck, and I'd truly cut them out. I don't have that opportunity here, so I have a couple options. The first option for this is to use card control principles. I take the aces, I throw them on top, I pretend to shuffle them in, but really I'm shuffling short. Go to the other side, shuffle short. Cyclical cut. One cut, hold a break, false strip, and I actually have them on top. And then I can do a double undercut and then just cut out the aces and continue in that way. That's one way. The other way is to put them on top and get a crimp. If I push one card off, I could do a Nash Infinity Crimp, but I'm not going to teach that. Or just do a crimp, an edge crimp. I push the card off on the bottom, I get it underneath, and I squeeze it, and I put a crimp in the back side. So I squeeze it, I put a crimp in its backside, drop it back on top. Now I have a crimp card underneath, and I have my aces on top. I can shuffle short, aces on top, crimp on the bottom, and I can just drop this in two undercuts on top. And now all I have to do is pick up at my crimp, and I'll cut to the aces every time. I can shuffle it back to the bottom, shuffle my aces to the top, and I can continue in this way. I won't belabor the point. But Scarney's Aces is really easily done using just a simple crimp, either crimping all the cards if you have the chance, or crimping just a key card that you can put against it. The other option is to bridge the top cards. This does not work well with plastic cards, which these are plastic cards, but with paper cards it works wonderfully. You take the top, and right when you go to cut, undercut, you just push the cards together on a shuffle, a short shuffle, all aces on top, and I just bridge the top like this, so that from the edge I'm squeezing these top cards so that there's a bend. And then whenever I do my undercut, I'll always be able to cut to that. And I just do that before every single ace, and they all come out right. There you go. Invisible Deck. Any card at any number. Burglass Effect. 51 Faces North. The Trick That Cannot Be Explained. Triumph. Out of This World. Scarney's Aces. Tell the story of John Scarney and what he would do with the mobsters. It flies every time. It's the story. It's not the method. It's not the method. It's hardly the presentation. It's mostly the story and what they recall about the experience that makes the trick. That's a lot of stuff. I hope you appreciate this video. Best of luck with this, and happy magicking.